there, two awesome movie nerds watchers. Abby here.
And Elliot here, and that is our friend Justin. He's going to be hanging out. Thank you for waving, Justin. But here we are not here to discuss Justin, although he is splendid. We are to discuss a very, very essential question. Who watches The Watchmen?
We did.
We did.
About a week ago, actually.
Absolutely. And we got to go to a preview screening. Thank you very much to the folks at SceneStealers.com for hooking us up with passes.
We heart you.
We heart SceneStealers.com. I mean, a lot of you have probably already seen Watchmen, but you know what? I gotta say, I thought it was stellar.
It was really good. Sorry, I know that was cute.
I was just like so old down home and old timey.
That was really sweet. No, I thought it was really great, very visually arresting, and although it makes a few marked changes from the book, I think it kept the spirit of the celebrated graphic novel very well, and had a lot of interesting things to say on its own, and looked fantastic, by the way.
It really does. I mean, I thought it was kind of funny that, you know, the advertisements for this movie say, from the visionary director of 300. I wouldn't have given him visionary director status after 300, but after seeing this, I thought it was quite something.
Totally.
But, you know, just to get this out of the way relatively early on, folks, for those of you who have read Watchmen, you know that what I'm about to say is true. For those of you who have not read it, when you read it, because I'm going to assume that you are going to read it, you will agree with me. Watchmen is simply unadaptable. Plain and simple. So no matter what happened with the movie, there was going to be some sort of shortcoming. There was going to be something left out. It's just simply too dense to really adapt truthfully and, you know, fully on screen.
If they had included all of the details from the actual comic itself, it would have been significantly longer than it already was. And as it was almost 3 hours.
Yeah.
So I think with what Zack Snyder was able to do, I think he did a darn good job.
Absolutely. And, you know, part of that is the fact that it's basically trying to be a conduit as best he possibly can. And so, you know, I'm really looking forward to the director's cut of this.
Oh,
the
goodness.
Extended DVD cut where we can include things like, you know, scenes from the Black Freighter, where we can include things that are more, you know, sort of deep into the context of the book, like the people at the newsstand who are pretty much like a Greek chorus for a lot of the work. But, you know, let's actually just talk to them about the movie at hand, because we've talked about the book.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Yes, we have.
Okay, so first of all, let's talk about cast. I think this film was probably one of the most brilliantly cast superhero films of any kind ever.
Uncanny. Just ridiculously uncanny. And starting from the get-go with Jackie Earle Haley, who, holy cow,
so good.
Was Rorschach.
Yeah, I mean, he was really top to bottom. It was kind of scared the hell out of me, because I'm like, if I meet this guy in an alley somewhere, I'm going to be really unsettled by him.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's got the really gravelly voice, and, you know, just seeing him carrying around the sign, as Walter Kovac says, the end is near, I was like, man, they really, really got him right. But I mean, filling out the entire rest of the cast, Patrick Wilson as Night Owl 2. He put on a couple of pounds, but still looks better than, you know, pretty much any normal guy ever would.
He's freakish.
He really is.
He's freakishly attractive.
And Malene Ackerman as Silk Spectre 2.
She did a pretty good job.
I know. I mean, I think one of the interesting things about her is that her acting performance was probably about as deep as the character.
Yeah.
So, I mean, very evenly matched.
Let's talk Billy Crudup as Dr. Manhattan.
Let's talk Billy Crudup.
Because I think he did a really great job, and considering that it was a motion capture performance, and you risk a lot with motion capture performances being flat, because obviously they're not appearing as the character, they're appearing in a motion capture suit, so they have to do a significant amount of imagining how they would look on screen, separate from their acting job. I thought he was very compelling. I thought that the sequence in which he talks about becoming Dr. Manhattan, the accident that gave him the powers that he has, was one of the strongest points, if not the strongest point of the film. And
it really translated well from the text to the screen.
It really did.
But I mean, you know, on top of the fact that it was motion capture, even though it was motion capture, still a lot of it had to do with the animators' personal touch. So even though I want to give Billy Crudup complete props for strong performance, I think that the people behind his performance in the visual effects department also deserve a huge round of applause for that.
Because it looked great.
It really did.
Great.
So otherwise, in the cast, the only person that I was really disappointed with in this movie was Carly Gugino. Because she
just kind of showed up.
She showed up. She didn't bring it. I mean, she was in Sin City for 2 minutes and brought it 30 times harder than she did for this movie. And I just, was so underwhelmed because she's one of the people that I like to root for.
Oh, granted, I mean, playing a lesbian shrink is kind of a cooler position than playing old washed up Silk Spectre. I know, but old washed up Silk Spectre without the costume on, for the most part, except for that one particular scene that we won't go into. Speaking of which, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, we haven't talked about him yet. Oh my goodness!
Crazy man.
Wow.
But he really makes it work.
Yeah, he hasn't really been much of a name up until now, I think. I mean, he's been kind of one of those people who you kind of know who he is, but mostly for television work, I think, not for movie work.
I think there's a lot about this movie that will really stand out to a lot of people, but I think the segment of the movie that is still shaking me to this very day, the opening credits, was unlike anything I've ever seen before.
Gorgeous.
I mean, the entire thing, it's basically following the premise of, okay, so Watchmen exists in an alternate reality of our current history. So basically we go back through various points in history and events that are very sort of emblematic of, the U.S.'s rise to power and so on and so forth. And we see, these Caped Crusaders sort of transplanted into this world, and it's all set to The Times They Are A-Changin' by Bob Dylan, and I was just floored by it.
Pretty much the jaw-dropper moment in there,
yeah.
I think. Right from the get-go, it's like, slam!
It was, just one of those things that, honestly, yeah. I'm still thinking about it.
Amazing
looking, unwrapping it.
Ingenious planning. I think Zack Snyder's one of those guys who has a definite visual flair and a good conceptual eye, and I think he really brought it in this movie, and nowhere do you see that better than at the very beginning in the opening credits.
Of course. Now let's talk about some of the criticisms of the film. One of the reviewers that I respect very much, Eric Moline of SceneStealers.com, in reading his review, he said that, he thinks that Snyder glorified the violence, made it all matrixy and slow and all that sort of stuff, when that's not really what Watchmen is about. I understand that point of view, but I would also say that I think slowing things down in an action sequence is the only way to truly represent the visuals and the panels of a graphic novel. It's like, their full extent. If the eye has enough time to dart around and see all the details that a frame or a single cell from the comic would have, I think that's doing it justice. So I can understand why he would have gripes with the, matrixy slow punching, across the screen and stuff like that. But I thought it was okay.
I think so. A movie critic that I liked a lot, that I respect a whole lot, Robert Butler from the Kansas City Star. Butler! Gave mad props to this movie, calling it the greatest superhero movie ever made. And I had kind of a short email conversation with him regarding this. And what he said, this week actually, he emailed me back.
She didn't share this with me. So.
I'm kind of a fangirl. But what he said was that you need to look at it as a film, not just an adaptation, because obviously there are people going to this who have not read the book. So as a film, he said that it entertained him, and that it delivered on pretty much all the levels that a movie of this caliber is supposed to deliver on. It did its job. And I think he's absolutely right. So that's kind of my response to all the other criticisms, is that this is what this movie is supposed to do. It did it well. As a film, I didn't really have any complaints with it structurally, and I thought it looked great. So therefore, in my book, it is a success. Absolutely.
One last point. People gripe that they changed the ending. You know what? First of all, we've established it's not the book in movie form. It's an adaptation of it, so just relax, people. It's all in good fun. Second, I think the political climate of the world in which the book was written has changed subtly, since, in time, and so the world's just a different place. The ending needed to be different in order for it to make sense to us as an audience. So aside from those things, I think 2 thumbs way, way up. And I'm Elliot.
I'm Abby.
And we're the 2 awesome movie nerds, so go forth and watch.
If you haven't already.